to have everybody on clearly. So, Dr. Johnson, we were talking about Jill Biden, and then Sister Milady, we're talking about the LSU girls as well, and I'm saying, so now that that has been done, what do you think that Joe Biden's going to set his wife straight, or tell her, stay out of?
Yes, because here's the issue. As you know, black women are one of the most touted political constituencies by potential candidates. And I think the Democratic Party is concerned that Jill Biden's naive, racist act could have repercussions for black women voters during the next presidential election.
Yeah, they need all the help they can get.
Exactly. I anticipate that the president is probably going to try to make some concessions towards black women to make sure they don't lose those votes on election day. So many black men don't vote because we understand that the situation doesn't really work for us. And then you have so many black men behind bars who are not necessarily able to vote. So the black woman's vote is paramount for the Democratic Party. And Joe Biden's mistake could cost them several 100,000 votes. So I expect the president to do something to try to pull black women back into the favor of the Democratic Party.
So as far as you understand, have the other team declined to go to the White House, or are they still going? Because I saw with LSU,
Jill Biden, she walked it back.
Okay,
she withdrew that invitation. She might go visit them at their campus, something like that. Yeah. But she walked it back. She can't do that because that would set a precedent whereby anyone who loses can make the argument that they have a right to go as well. And if that's the case, what's the use of having to visit at all if it's supposed to be something for the champions?
That's right, championship honors, not secondary honors. Wow. So now what's this other thing that's going on in Tennessee? What's your take on that?
Well, with the two brothers who were expelled by the Tennessee state legislators, that was nothing but racism. I mean, we haven't even really heard of any prominent expulsions or any expulsions at all, except the last time I can recall one was Adam Clayton Powell, when he was excused from the New York state legislature for his revolutionary activity. And before him, we probably got to go back to the days of Reconstruction, where after the election of so many black people to state legislatures across the country, that many white folks just simply expelled all of them from office. But in the modern era, definitely not in this century. We haven't even heard of anything this ridiculous. But I think it speaks to the climate of hate against black people in this country. I think it speaks to the climate of racism and the climate of bigotry against black people in this country. We're seeing things being done, particularly to black people, that are not being done almost anywhere else. I just read of a story earlier today where a black couple had their baby taken from them by Child and Family Services because they decided to have a home birth. I mean, we look at the elimination of the history of slavery in America from the textbooks, the elimination of the teaching of racism, American racism, from the textbooks, but at the same time, there's no removal of Jewish contributions and Jewish history. Their Holocaust, which didn't even take place on American soil, that's still in the history books. So I really just think black people need to step back, take a look that we are going back to the future. Even if we go to Jackson, Mississippi, where I was last week for the Free to Land, Free to Water crisis, how the Mississippi State Legislature created a capital district zone in Jackson without the consent of the voters, without the authority of the mayor, and simply usurped Mayor Antar Lumumba of his democratically elected power to govern over Jackson. And they basically created an apartheid town, basically for white people, that includes all of the majority of the white business district in Jackson, Mississippi, who are now under their own police force, unelected, own fire department, unelected, own police chief, unelected, not chosen by the mayor, not chosen by the voters. They have their own judiciary, not chosen by the voters. I mean, how can you go into a city, undermine the democratically elected government, and create your own apartheid-style district? So we're seeing a whole bunch of blatant misrepresentations of the law when it comes to black people, and we're going to need to take a stand soon before it gets worse.
I was on my way to the studio today, and I said, people don't understand the urgency of now. You know, they really don't, because this stuff is coming down mighty fast, look like to me, and because it's like there is no more, they don't want no more democracy. They want it to be their way only. They don't abide by the laws, only their laws, only their rules. You know, as long as you with them, you don't, it's okay if you break a rule. But if you ain't with them, everything you do is against the law. You know, and so people are going to have to try to understand and round up our own wagons and try to get together and cooperate with one another to strengthen our existence here. Otherwise, they're going to be wiping us out. They got a guy in Tennessee talking about putting up a lynch. I mean, lynching people from the trees again as an execution.
Yeah, it's getting bad. You've had slavery on the ballot in several states.
Wow.
You know, whether or not that should be removed from their books officially. It's going to get a whole lot worse before it gets even better. And now with the American dollar losing its prominence on the global scale, with the efforts of BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, and with the influence that they're now having on other economies in the so-called second and third world, you've already had major governments decide and corporations, they're no longer using the U.S. dollar as a medium of exchange. So this is signaling the decline of America's superiority on the global scale for the first time since World War II. And so that means the economy is never going to be as strong as it's ever been. The dollar is not going to be as strong as it's ever been. And of course, when white America catches the cold, black America catches the flu. So it's really going to get bad for us now because America is not even on top anymore. She's descending, and she's descending quickly. So as the most honorable Marcus Garvey warned us 100 years ago, that we should not put our faith in America to always be the preeminent power of the world. You know, empires go up, empires go down. And black people are so loyal to their slave master that we can't even recognize when the slave house is in trouble.
So, Malele, did you have anything you want to comment on what we've been talking about?
I just want to say I had a very raw experience in my very young 20s going to Tennessee for the first couple of times in my life. And I actually, while I was there, witnessed a Klan rally and witnessed the blatant racism. And the Klan rally actually was very near the hotel that we were staying in. And they were accustomed to groups of us coming during that time of year for training. And it happened to have been at the Alex Haley Farm.
So Dr. Johnson, so now that we've seen they've revealed themselves as they have, and I really appreciate the solutions that Sister Malele was giving us. In fact, because we've been talking about this for a while, that it has been coming, it's been on its way. A lot of us are not prepared, you know. So other than building our bomb shelters, what else do you think that we should do? As she also said, I don't think that we should spend a lot of time worrying about what they do. We should spend more time worrying about what we can and should do.
I totally agree. We definitely need to spend more time worrying about what we do, not what they do. But of course, we got to be aware of what they do, so we have to strategically plan for it. Then we tend to be their favorite target of oppression. With that, I think that black people have to look at creating their own community-based economy, whether that is a barter system, whether we come up with our own form of currency, digital or otherwise. We're going to need to be able to work within the community to get our needs met, because not only are you looking at the decline of the American dollar, you're also looking at the decline of the need for human labor. With artificial intelligence, we see so many major corporations in America beginning to downsize. I mean, McDonald's is laying down burgers. Absolutely. Checkers is already gone. I think Burger King is on the way out. And of course, we know that with the rise of Uber Eats and DoorDash, you know, that kind of murdered the fast food movement, just as Netflix destroyed Blockbuster and home video. how are we going to survive? Because America will have no safety net for black people. Our Congressional Black Caucus, I don't know what they're doing down there in D.C., but they're definitely not fighting for the type of resources that we need to have in our community. So we are in a state of emergency. It's going to get even more desperate. And the question becomes, how long will Black America wait until we begin to organize? The enemy is our own lack of disorganization. It is the lack of disorganization that makes it so easy for the white power structure to make the black people that they do. If we organize, we will survive. And if we don't organize, we will perish.
Well, we got to call the good.
But see, here's our problem. Slavery has hypnotized the American Negro with the belief that the white man is invincible. So when we look at the news and when we hear these international stories that's coming from Al Jazeera, Democracy Now, other major media platforms from other continents and countries, but yet we hear from the United States government that everything's going to be all right, most black people are so well trained that they are never going to question the security, or should I say the financial security of the American dollar, because the slave masters are selling them. At the end of the day, all will be well. So one of our biggest problems is this hypnosis of white supremacy that doesn't allow black people to look at what's going on outside of the American collective consciousness. We've been under the rule of the white man for 400 years, and most black people believe that it's absolutely impossible for this great white man to ever lose his prominence on the world stage. So we have to.
But, Robert David, you're speaking to somebody who came from independent schools. I started off since I was 3 years old in Marcus Garvey Shule. It doesn't exist any longer, but that was my foundation. And so
but that's the thing. We see the results. We see what has done for you. So we see the results. And why can't we apply those same results to more of our children? So what do you think about that, Dr. Johnson, about coming through your academy and going on to other higher levels of education in Africa?
Yes, I totally agree with it. I mean, we're an independent school. We're not a charter school. Philadelphia doesn't have any grade school that's independent grade schools right now. We kind of lost them all, but we got to get them back. Philadelphia historically was one of the foundational cities for independent black education. The charter school movement came, and some people blame the charter school movement for the death of the independent school. I disagree. I think that the independent school movement did not keep itself current, and that was the problem. If you have a parent who has to choose between charter school education that they don't have to pay for, because charter schools are public schools by law, they're not independent, or whether you're going to pay for an independent school out of pocket, that means that independent school needs to offer something that convinces the parent that paying for their child's education is worth it, because we do have a lot of black parents who still send their children to white private schools. And I know this because as a certified school psychologist, I do a lot of the intelligence testing and the cognitive assessment for black children to go to these independent and private white schools that cost anywhere from $15 to $20 to even $30,000 a year. So black parents will pay for a private education if they feel they're getting their money's worth. And I just don't think a lot of the independent schools, not just in Philadelphia, but across the country, we've seen a decline in independent black schools. I think right now we may only have about 3 dozen across the country. And when I say independent school, I mean actually an educational system inside of a traditional school building. I'm not talking about home schools. I'm not talking about the church basement. I'm talking about a real functioning school. We only have about maybe 2 to 3 dozen of those. So I think that, and you have CV, Council of Independent Black Institutions, which is based in Trenton, New Jersey. And I also believe there's another council for independent black institutions that exists. I don't know if that's in Chicago or elsewhere, but I think one of the things we're going to do with Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey Academy, since we are the first independent school in American history to be built exclusively by the African diaspora, we're going to create our own council of independent black institutions to see if we can bring all of the independent tuition-based black schools under one accord normalize our educational programs across cities and across states. So if a parent has to relocate from Wilmington, Delaware to Oakland, California, if there's an independent school in Oakland, California, we can make sure that we're operating on the same general system of education so that children don't lose out when they move from one city to the next. So in essence, we need to create an independent Black school district where, just like with public schools, they may not do everything the same, but there's a lot within that educational regimen that is consistent. So if you do go from Philadelphia to Harrisburg or Harrisburg to Pittsburgh, things will be different, but there's still a lot that will be the same, so the child isn't too disoriented when they have to begin learning in another institution. I think independent Black schools have to come together. No man is an island, and that includes me. I might be the most popular of us all, but I'm not an island either. We have to work together. All independent, tuition-based Black schools have to work together because we are the future for our people. And I say that because the charter schools do an excellent job, tremendous job. But at the end of the day, they are public. And it doesn't take nothing but a legislative session to vote charter schools out of operation. I don't think that's going to happen no time soon, but yet and still, you're still under the authority of the state. Whereas when you are independent, you're able to operate your educational system as you so choose. And I think those of us who are independent schools have to come together and work together to give our families a viable alternative.
Plus, as an independent school council, they will be able to share the resources amongst themselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, and for me, I don't working with other independent schools, you know, that are out there. Of course, you always got some conflicts with ego and territorialism and things of that nature, but hopefully people who suffer from them type of issues can get over it for the best interest of African children.
All right, we got Ken has been holding on for quite a while, and we want to hear from Ken. Good evening, Ken. How you doing today?
Greetings, comrades, sisters, and brothers, and the little sister who supports the medical school out there in Cuba. Thank you much, ma'am. We communists have been quite adamant at getting kids to go to that. We, myself and my significant other, Violetta, we've been all through Philadelphia and introducing kids to that. And we're hoping that in the long run they end up going. There are a bunch of other schools out there. Patrice Lumumba University, I hope it still exists. I haven't done the research on it recently. It was right outside of Moscow back when the Soviet Union was operating. Free education for people coming in out of the continent. And they graduated, a whole bunch of them. So we need to get in contact with that section as well. There's a bunch of folk at the moment. I got a friend of mine who went over to People's Republic of China recently. He's going to be getting his graduate degree over there. And when he gets back, I'll see what we can do in terms of getting him involved in some of the other things too. But the reality of it is that if you want to really get on board with everything that is going on right now, I would advise everybody to look up something called BRICS, BRICS. The United States NATO system, the United States European Union is on its way down. This isn't just the United States, everybody. We're looking at a system of something called the Bretton Woods that integrated all. Integration wasn't about black folk integrating with white folks. Integration in the 1970s with the United States military and economic system integrating with the world and continuing control of it.
All right, so well, listen, Ken, we're not going to be playing Battleship right over here today, but because we got another caller that want to get into the conversation.
Have fun. Over and out, comrade.
Thank you so much, man. Yes, good evening, caller. Welcome to New Worldview.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yusef.
Yes, sir. Yusef, how you doing? From North Philly.
Yes. Your young lady mentioned a word that drew me to call in. She said something about the Africanos.
Afro-Cubans or Africanos?
Yeah, when she was talking earlier, she mentioned the word Africanos.
Okay, and so what's your issue?
Yeah, well, I know issue is this. I identify with that label. See, I'm from a neighborhood that named ourselves after the Moors. I know you know about the Moors of Africa.
Sure.
And the Moors, Africanos, was what we named ourselves. Our name is an acronym for it's a shorter version of them called the Moroccos. And that's where we got our name from. We was proud of where we come from.
You mean Morocco's down in Francisville?
Right. It's in North Philadelphia, right.
Mm-hmm.
Because we got our name from Moors Africanos because I traced my roots to the Moors of Africa. And I was telling people from my neighborhood, I said, there's nothing wrong with being proud of what you come from. I'm saying, there's nothing wrong with identifying with our roots from what we originally was. We weren't called black people or Negroes. We were the Moors of Africanos. And that's something that it always takes a black female to bring out things that, black men just either they don't know or they don't care about.
All right. Okay. Sometimes we know the women can educate us as well. Absolutely. I mean, look at our first teachers. Most times are our mothers. So we recognize that they are. Okay. Thank you so much, man. So, any comments about what those two callers just said, Dr. Johnson?
I mean, not really. When you're in a state of emergency, it's important that you focus on your priority.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm only saying that because in some of the last couple of interviews that I've done, many of the callers have had questions that centered on issues that are not as relevant as our survival.
Mm-hmm.
And although there's always an opportunity and there's always a place and a time for us to, discuss the finer points of history and identity, and all of that's important and relevant. But when your back is up against the wall and you're being targeted for extermination, we don't have time to sit around and argue over what we should call ourselves. And I see too many black people wasting time on irrelevant conversation and debate.
Mm-hmm.
Because and this is not to the brother who just called at all, I'm actually thinking of another line of questioning that I recently witnessed in an interview a couple of days ago. But whether you believe you're...
That's right. It's our anniversary made for you and me right here at WURD. I'm David Barnes, photo man for you too. And on the phone line with us is Dr. Umar Johnson and also Sister Malele Sullivan. We're sharing the microphone today with them, actually, because there's so much going on in society and in this world today. I really wanted to talk to Dr. Johnson to get his spin on what's going on. And I really wanted Sister Malele to give us a female perspective of what she sees going on as well. It's like going on with the sisters in the LSU basketball championship. And, one of the things that I recognize also, Dr. Johnson, is that all this disruption that's going on in Tennessee is going on right around nearly the same anniversary of the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King in Memphis, Tennessee.
Well, I was down there to keynote the 55th memorial of Dr. King's assassination. And I got an opportunity to go to the Divine Lorraine Hotel where he was assassinated, which is now the National Civil Rights Museum. And one of the things that, we continue to find so disheartening about the National Civil Rights Museum, which I learned while I was there on April the 4th, that it is owned by white people, or at least controlled or managed by white people. Black people do not control that museum.
Wow.
I did not know that. My original thought was that it was a National Historic Site under the control of the State Park Service,
mm-hmm.
as are, most of the nation's historical landmarks, but it's not.
Wow.
From what I understand, allegedly, it's privately owned by a white family, and they kind of dictate the narrative of Dr. King's story in that museum. To this very day, James Earl Ray is still listed as Dr. King's assassin.
Wow.
The building across the Street is still being passed off as the place from which Dr. King was shot by James Earl Ray, which we know to not be true because William Pepper, the white attorney who represented Dr. King's family in court with Coretta Scott King, rest in peace, and the children, they proved in court beyond a shadow of a doubt that it was the FBI working in collaboration with the Ku Klux Klan of Tennessee, as well as the Memphis Fire and the Memphis Police Department and the Green Berets of the U.S. Army, who were the backup shooters. It was the FBI who ordered Dr. King's assassination. James Earl Ray had absolutely nothing to do about it. This is government record proven in court. Dr. King was shot by a sharpshooter from the Memphis Police Department. Wow. He did not shoot him from that building. He shot him from the grassy knoll. He then was picked up in a car, taken over a river or a stream, if memory serves me correctly, and he was hid from public view. James Earl Ray has nothing to do with it, but the reason they will not change that narrative is because the National Civil Rights Museum is a very popular museum, arguably as popular as the Smithsonian National African American Museum in D.C., and I think America, always sensitive about her image abroad, continues to perpetrate the lie that James Earl Ray was the killer because they don't want people who come to America to visit the place where Dr. King was murdered. They don't want them to really know that it was the government who killed Dr. King, not James Earl Ray.
I wonder why they don't memorialize the Audubon Theater.
Well, they do. The Audubon, which is now called the Malcolm and Betty Shabazz Center.
Oh, okay.
It is, yes, and you can visit it. Different programs are held there. I spoke at a high school graduation there. But I would say that the Audubon has some more road to travel when you compare it to the Divine Lorraine Hotel. And I like the Audubon. I like what they're doing with the Audubon. But I think that a lot more can be done with the Audubon to bring it up to par with Dr. King Shrine. And, you know, I'm referring to the National Civil Rights Museum as the shrine, just like I refer to the Audubon as Brother Malcolm's shrine. We need to have the same type of intensity of information, intensity of detail, and intensity of activity that we have at the Divine Lorraine in Memphis. In fact, when I toured the Audubon, and I've spoken there a few times, but one time when I toured the Audubon, if memory serves me correctly, the part of the Audubon that you see when you visit is not the sum total of that building. From what I was told, the building is much larger than the gallery where Brother Malcolm was murdered. And so I think it's an issue of fundraising and money, because if they control that entire building, there's so much more they can do with that Audubon to really bring it to life the way in which Dr. King's life and legacy was brought to life at the National Civil Rights Museum.
So do they don't even get to see the auditorium at the Audubon?
No, you do.
Oh, okay.
Yes, you do. You do get to see where Brother Malcolm was murdered. Again, they now hold events there. So you can actually rent out the Audubon Ballroom. The actual location where Brother Malcolm gave his last talk and took his last breath, that is now rented out. It's very beautiful. Very beautiful. They have Malcolm's life almost in a artistic timeline, represented by portraits and images of Brother Malcolm that were painted. So it's a very beautiful space. It's just that the space, that the entire building has not been renovated to its full capacity, where you can actually tour it to the extent that you can tour the Divine Lorraine Hotel and really get a full history lesson on the life of Dr. Shabazz and Brother Malcolm.
I didn't know they had tours of the Divine Lorraine Hotel right here in Philadelphia, Broad Ridge.
I didn't know they did that. I didn't know that. I wasn't aware of that.
I didn't either.
Yeah, I didn't know that. 'Cause now that's the same the Divine Lorraine where Dr. King was
Oh,
murdered.
we're talking about two different.
In Mulberry Street.
Oh, now the Lorraine Hotel in Memphis was that was not the Divine Lorraine, or is it?
Right. Same hotel chain.
What?
In other words, the Divine Lorraine Hotel in Philadelphia at Broad and Fairmount. That is the exact same hotel chain that owns the Divine Lorraine Hotel where Dr. King was murdered.
So you mean when Father Divine was operating that property, he also owned the one there?
Was that economically powerful?
Wow.
Yes, that he operated hotels in multiple cities.
Wow.
And you see how big the one is in Philadelphia.
Yeah, humongous.
He owned that back in the 19th. The one in Memphis, I believe he owned that going back to the 1930s. And those are not the only two properties that Father Divine had. He had much more than that. Because remember, he comes in after Marcus Garvey. And so Father Divine and Daddy Grace, Honorable Elijah Muhammad and others, they all patterned themselves after Garvey, although their ideology and philosophical base would be completely different. So Father Divine claimed to be God incarnate. He claimed to be God incarnate. And of course, he was married to a white woman. In fact, I think he had multiple white women, which is one of the issues that the black nationalists.
Mother Divine right now. I don't even know if she's still alive.
And when he died, she took possession of that estate. But the Father Divine ministry is still operating to this very day. There was a documentary that was just published on him last year, maybe 2 years ago. They just did a documentary on Father Divine, and he still has members that are still alive. And I saw where the seat where he used to sit in his mansion, the Father Divine mansion, which is, if I'm not mistaken, is right outside of Philadelphia.
Yeah, I've heard about it, but I haven't been there.
And they still have his seat right there, and they still honor him as if he was still sitting in that seat.
He said he was God.
He said he was God. God with a white wife.
Wow. So, listen, we got a caller wants to join the conversation. Good evening, caller. Welcome to New Worldview. What's your first name? Where you calling from?
Hello.
Yes, that's you.
Hello, hi. This is Jessica.
Hey, Jessica, how you doing?
Hello to all. Hello, gentlemen. Hello, madam.
Hello.
I hope that everyone had a great holiday. A few things I want to say. I know the people on the line, but first, Dr. Umar, I have two questions. If time permits, hopefully I can ask to understand if there's not enough time. But first, Dr. Umar, wanted to say, I really commend you when you went to Mississippi for the Free to Land, Free to Water protest and movement that you're having over there. I really commend you for going over there, because I feel like that event, that should be, in my opinion, like Biden's Katrina, and just with how little press, how little outrage. I feel like there's definitely not enough outrage with what's going on over there, and you going over there to, stand by the people. I mean, you're definitely a person of your word, where you're you're definitely a grassroots, person. So I really commend you for definitely being over there, standing up for the people over there.
Well, that's great. Did you send him a contribution?
I'm sorry?
I said, that's great. Did you send him a contribution for the school?
Yes. Well, I did that before in the past, but not for the Free to Land. But before the past, yes, I have done that. But may I ask two questions, Father David, if time permits?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. So, first question, Dr. Umar, this is about Obama. But I just wanted to know, nothing negative, but, okay, so you stated that you wish that Obama's presidency would have never happened because you believe it did set Black America backwards. But at the same time, your rise with your global popularity of Black consciousness, it took off in 2010 during the time Obama was president. So I just wanted to know, in your opinion, do you believe that if Obama wasn't president at the time, that the relevancy of this Black consciousness community would have ever been widely acknowledged as it is now?
Yes, I don't think Obama had much to do with that. In fact, I would say Obama, his election actually triggered a regression in Black consciousness, because so many Black people saw the symbolism of his campaign, the birth of a new America where black people would be included and treated as equal. So a lot of nationalists began to second guess their political position. If you remember going back to the 8 years of the Obama administration, there were people who were questioning whether we still needed a black consciousness movement. Do we still need the NAACP, the Urban League? Do we still need independent black organizations? They were even questioning, do we still need historically black colleges and universities?
Do we still need Black History Month?
I would say the Obama illusion actually detracted away from black consciousness for a while. And I would say maybe President Trump's ascendancy to the White House may have brought back some consciousness. But while Obama was in office, most black people thought they were A-OK. A-OK. And now they wake up and see that Obama was nothing more than a distraction for Negroes so the American power structure could rearm, reorganize, and reassert its racism against black people more effectively than it ever has. Barack Obama made it possible for black people to be completely ignored by U.S. presidents. Now, don't get me wrong. Historically, none of the presidents took care of business for black people, but they might have tried to act like it. They might have tried to throw you some crumbs. Bill Clinton, Jimmy Carter, Lyndon Baines Johnson, they tried. But after Barack Obama got away with doing nothing for 8 years and not even so much as a question for black America, Donald Trump would not have to be accountable to you. Why do you think Joe Biden is so unapologetic in ignoring black people after he begged for your vote? Because everybody's basically going to look at black America and say, you have to do anything for black people except be black. I don't have to do anything for black people either except be white.
Well, I see where they are. I think it's in Detroit or is it Michigan, somewhere they're trying to say they want to give blacks reparations. And I'm saying, and then some other places too, in California, they're hitting at it and stuff. And I'm saying, they talking about it in these pockets. Why don't we have a national reparations council to say how we should receive and distribute and apply reparations, which is we are entitled to, but not, scattered here and there. You get this, you get that. I want the repair done all across the board. Everybody should be repaired at the same time.
Well, the thing is, Baba David, internal reparations has to precede external reparations. If black people do not repair the way we think, no matter what we did, it will count for naught because it will not be used by black minds that are interested in the reconstruction of the black society. Most Negroes want reparations so they can use it to more fully participate in the white man's reality. They're not thinking about creating a black man's reality. Reparations is supposed to be used to create a black man's reality, not to help further our integrationist fantasy. We're supposed to be creating a separate reality for ourselves. That's what reparations should be getting used for. But I would tell you this. We can't use reparations as a scapegoat either. And what I mean by that, very little conversation is being had around what black people are doing with their money right now. See, that gets ignored, and we go straight into the reparations, and nobody holds the black community accountable for wasting $2 trillion every year. When are black women going to have a conference amongst themselves and talk about how they're going to redirect $30 billion in hair and beauty? When are black men going to have a conference amongst ourselves and talk about how we're going to redirect that $2 billion in Air Jordan or that $12 billion in men's cologne? You understand?
So now, Dr. Johnson, so what do we do? How do we prepare our people to become mentally repaired first. We talk about it here on the show. You talk about it in your lectures, but that's just a small population. Like I said, if we had a reparations preparation committee, we could do national promotions and things like that, so that people could become aware. Don't just think that it's going to be about no money. It's going to be about a life-changing situation.
Well, the thing is this, Bob and David, and you and I have had this conversation before, and it's not very popular, this position of mine, but here's where I am, coming from the position of a psychologist. I understand how difficult it is for people to change who they are. It's possible, but it's not likely. Only about 15% of people who receive psychotherapeutic services will realize a change in their life. And that's because most people are not willing to put in the work necessary to transform themselves. I would argue that post-traumatic slavery disease is a personality disorder. And like all personality disorders, they are egocentric, which means that the victims tend not to know that they even have a problem. So with that being said, I believe we can continue to fight for the reparations, but I think whatever we get needs to be put in trust to African generations unborn. In other words, maybe our children, maybe our grandchildren will be divorced enough from the psychosis of Americanism to be able to put that reparations settlement effectively into use for our community. Black people alive, living right now, I do not trust us to do what needs to be done with that money because we have not shown ourselves to be responsible enough with our own money, collectively speaking, to do anything for ourselves. We haven't built any major institutions since Dr. King was murdered. Not one. Name me a major institution built for Black people since Dr. King's assassination. I'm talking about schools, and we've had a few of those. Small independent schools, I'll give us that. But supermarkets, not really. Banks, not really. Many of our so-called Black banks have white people as the majority investors. Hospitals, not a single one since Dr. King was murdered. You understand? We have to look at that. And so I believe that whatever we get needs to be put in trust for our grandchildren. And if we work right now, begin the process of re-Africanization, re-Africanizing our children, then maybe in 30 years, those children, our grandchildren, will be able to take that reparation that we fought for in our pain and put it to use for the community. My vote is absolutely no as to whether or not Black people in the 21st century, living right now, walking this earth, I vote no. We should not be able to touch any of that reparation settlement because we will waste it. That is my position.
Well, give me a little deposit or something, some type of advance.
No, none of it. Because Bob and David, the reparations are not just for Black people living. One of the problems with the reparation narrative, we talk about it, not you and I, but Black America talks about reparations as if it's only for the living. What about the unborn? And what about the ancestors who have already passed on? For example, Baba, let's talk about the ancestors. One of the things I would love to build for the ancestors is a massive Pan-Africanist heritage museum. Not that Smithsonian in D.C., which is a disgrace and a shame, but a real museum that pays true testament to the hell that our ancestors experienced. You have European Jewish museums in every major city. You don't have a single African Holocaust museum except the one that's built by Mama and Baba Ragsdale right here in Philadelphia.
That's right.
They are the only African Holocaust museum in the entire country. That is a disgrace. We need a modern African Holocaust museum to tell the true story of our people, because without a modern African Holocaust museum in the United States, and there probably needs to be several, we will continue to rely on Hollywood movies to tell us the truth about the Ma'afa. That's for the history. For the future, we need to lay down institutions. We need to lay down entrepreneurship. We need to lay down economic investments so that children born in America from this day forward will never have to live a life of poverty and will never ever have to live a life of debt. I believe reparations should be spent more on the unborn African and not the one living and breathing right now.
All right, Patrick has a question for you.
Doc. So listening to you means that when they cut a check, I think it wouldn't take 2 days and that check will be gone. Apart from the financial incentives, what other forms of reparation do you think will be possible to make it lasting for the community we're talking about?
Great question, Brother Patrick. And I'm going to say this, and I want everybody to hear me well, and I thank you for that question. I spoke in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania last night. I keynoted the 2023 Black Pittsburgh Black Health and Equity Conference. In Pittsburgh, there are over 42,000 employing businesses. Less than 1% are owned by Black people. In Pittsburgh, Black children represent 56% of the public school students, but they only have 12% Black teachers. In Pittsburgh, Black people are 23% of Pittsburgh, but they are 67% of the people in jail. They are 67% of the people stopped by the police. Pittsburgh will soon be one of America's new leading tech hubs. They call in Pittsburgh the new Silicon Valley. And almost none of those technology jobs are being put in the hands of the Black community in Pittsburgh, and the Pittsburgh public school system is not preparing our children to take those jobs. Why am I bringing this up? I'm bringing this up to say that if we don't include systemic reconstruction, if we don't target institutional racism, if we let white America get away with simply giving us money or a few other meaningful concessions without actually breaking down and rebuilding every institution, major institution in this country, brick by hypocritical brick, 25 to 50 years after reparations, you will be right back where you started. I would argue that the need for institutional overhaul, institutional revolution, institutional renovation, institutional modification far outsees any monetary demands we could put on a reparations list. If you don't do something about the miseducation, if you don't do something about the gentrification, if you don't do something about the police genocide, if you don't do something about the mass incarceration or the access to economic wealth, nothing else will matter. You have to change the nature and structure of American society, infrastructure, and institution if you really want America to give Black people a fair opportunity. Letting them give us a check and walk away is a joke. First of all, the American dollar is already in decline. The American dollar is already in decline right before your eyes. So if we know that the American dollar is on life support, why in the hell would you accept a restitution package for 243 years of forced labor and dehumanization? Why would you accept a check from the U.S. Treasury when the U.S. Treasury's money ain't worth nothing?
Be like a rubber check for real. But I think that, maybe a down payment or something to help to build some of these institutions as an incentive.
David, I would only vote for some of the reparations package to be used for Americans living right now if we begin to show with our $2 trillion in spending power, if we begin to show
that's right,
responsibility, economic responsibility with our $2 trillion annual budget.
That's right.
Then I'm willing to say, okay, Black people
I see that. That's right, because
we are now responsible enough to start disseminating the reparations package.
That's
so
right.
Why would you give an economically irresponsible people? Why would you give an economically irresponsible people that type of responsibility when they have not shown at all in this century, these 23 years, that they are serious about economic revolution? Why would you do that? That is an insult to the ancestors to give these American Negroes that type of responsibility. But we don't even have enough discipline with our own money. And now we're going to properly spend the ancestors' money? No way.
Yeah, that's right. They say y'all can't even handle the $1 trillion that y'all got amongst yourselves, and y'all want trillions, gazillions more. I understand, but I think that we really should begin putting it in our curriculum about how to reparations, preparation. Put it in the curriculum. Teach our children how to prepare themselves for a better future, without the stigmas attached to it. We can't just we just can't think that the parents are going to prepare our children within the next 30 years how to deal with that if they don't themselves know how to deal with that. That's why we need reparations, preparations, so that we can.
I agree. We need reparations, preparation, and one of the main preparations for reparations is we have to start functioning like a healthy village again.
That's right.
Until the Black community goes back to the village concept, we will not solve a single problem that we have. We are more selfish than the Europeans. We are more backbiting, conniving, jealous, and envious than the European. Until we start practicing collective work and responsibility, we have no business begging for our ancestors' reparations.
We got this caller been holding on for a good while. I apologize, caller. Welcome to New Worldview. What's your first name? Where you calling from?
Hi, David.
That's it.
Hi. This is Karen calling. The conversation has taken me all around the world.
That's what we do.
It started out with me wanting to make a comment about a recent lecture, and I guess it was a musical event I went to at Drexel, entitled Monuments, Why We Commemorate, and who we commemorate, and why we choose these individuals to commemorate. And I wanted to bring attention to a recent unveiling of the Joe Frazier statue.
Yeah, I saw that down at the Sports Museum.
Yeah, it's at Xfinity. It's like 36 feet or 40 feet tall. But why there? I mean, I thought ideally Glenwood and Broad would have been just a perfect place for something so huge.
Well, I saw that recently because as I was driving down Patterson Avenue and I saw it, and as I was coming up on it, I said, "That's right, they do. They not long ago had an unveiling of that statue down there."
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, because they have other statues of baseball players there. It is the sports complex down there, that's the sports mecca." And so I think that there may be an appropriate place, to display one of Philadelphia's sports heroes, along with the other sports statues down there. Because the Broad and Glenwood, it used to be his gym there. It's not a gym anymore. And that's one of the things, even about, people talk about taking back our neighborhoods. Our neighborhoods belonged to somebody else before we got there. So it's not really our neighborhoods. We can purchase property and land in certain neighborhoods and then maybe make it ours. If we build the schools, the churches, or the banks, the hospitals, then it could become ours. But it's not really our neighborhood. So I think that the sports complex is an appropriate place for a sports figure.
Well, I don't doubt that. Like it was said earlier, that's where the funding is. But there's no excuse to not convert the location that was formerly a gym into a museum at some point. It's still vacant. It's still there, located with nothing going on internally. And yes, none of this property belongs to us. The other thing I wanted to mention is Father Divine. Father Divine was married to a black woman for like 32 years. No one gives her credit for all the work that she managed to help him accomplish. And later married Edna Richings, which is known as Mother Divine. And I had been invited several times to his anniversary party, which was held annually at their estate, which was once owned by a coal miner. They converted everything back. His body is there on the grounds. He has a gold dome on his, I guess you can call it a crypt.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just, they're very colonial in their way, but beautiful order. I'm telling you, the order in that household is unlike anywhere in America as far as everyone understanding their role. It's very colonial. So I wanted to mention, yes, he did have black female influence, most of his successful life was with this black woman, and she died, and then he took on with Mother Divine, who was really a human being more than skin color, I thought.
Don't say that, Mama. Don't say that. Don't say that.
Well,
that
that's
white
what I'm
woman
saying.
inherited his entire fortune. We can't do that.
Well, you know what? That was a trust fund. Let me just say this. He was a wise man. And you might have thought that she inherited, but she couldn't afford to inherit the fortune. To be honest with you, you look into their records, you'll see that a trust was actually designed, even the properties on Broad Street, everything.
Who manages the trust? Who manages that trust? Do we know?
Too much about that, but I wanted to just make comment and clarify that yes, he did have African American love. You know,
appreciate that. No, he definitely had African American love. No, absolutely. Most of his followers were black, but you know, to your point, I just think a man in his position, you know, especially coming after the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey, promoted nothing but black on black love. For him to put that white woman in that seat, and then for him to transition and her to become the face of the movement, even if she wasn't the executor of the trust, I just think that wasn't a good image for black people. But I do appreciate a lot of the good that he did do. Father Divine and his peace movement, they fed a lot of people. You know, they housed a lot of people. There was a lot of great charitable work that was done in his name. I just wish he had married himself to a traditional image of black on black love.
Well, he had several daughters, and they carry on the element. But I wanted to say, would be remiss not to mention Reverend Leon Sullivan and the work that he managed to accomplish. We had a lot of great leaders at that point of the juncture of Marcus Garvey, you know, post Marcus Garvey. And I just wanted to bring Reverend Leon Sullivan and Cecil B. Moore, all of them gave of their hearts and their bloods, and probably died younger. William Gray, all of them died younger than they might have if they hadn't served.
David Richardson.
So we have to get back to a point of service. Once we get out of the ego, we can go back to service. Now, I have a project, and I'm going to call on you, David.
Okay.
If I had your email, I would be sending you something right now. It was a survey, and you may want to check this out. The 10 racist states right now in the United States. And Delaware happened to be number one on one of the survey charts. I think it was the New York Times, the Washington Post. All of them have these surveys.
You said Delaware number one.
What?
Yeah, Delaware. Guess who's running the country? You know.
We're the first state, so.
More than ever, we need to learn the word escheat. Because there's $4.5 billion right now in unclaimed property in the state of Pennsylvania. 16 billion.
And you know what? It's interesting that you mentioned that, because I was just reading recently that they have this thing, claim your property, claiming your unclaimed property, and they are legislating right now to make it easier to claim unclaimed property.
They made it a lot easier, but let me just get in real quick that New Jersey has 9.7 billion, and we're talking 85 million belonging to Philadelphia residents. I pledge to get every dollar back I can. Before reparations, we need to handle the business of our old money.
Absolutely.
We're so busy running after new money, we need to handle the old money.
Good sister, I want you to do me a favor if you don't mind. I want you to take my cell number, because I would like to have a conversation with you off this call, especially about that.
I'm ready. I have a pen.
Okay, you have a pen?
I'm ready.
215-989-9858. Again, that's 215-989-9858. You know, I'm in the process of building schools. We have one in Wilmington. I would like to put a few more across this state and even across this country for that matter. So I would like to see how you can go about purchasing or acquiring some of that unclaimed property, particularly the school building.
Oh, wait a minute. Here's one for you specifically. And this is called the upset sale. Just Google the term upset sale for any county like Montco, Chesco, Bucks, Delco. Upset sale. It's the best kept secret. You can buy any property for a penny on, I say $40,000. So
where is
you're
it?
buying it for a penny on every $40,000 value. So you might be able to buy a
what's that called?
building for $40,000. Upset sales.
Upset
You can
sales.
get it in any county, New Jersey, Florida, all of them have it. It's a private sale. You have to pay to attend it.
Mm-hmm.
But once you get admission, your admission cost goes towards anything that you wish to purchase. If you don't see anything you want, they refund you your money. But usually it's $500 just to keep the little people out, or something close to that.
So this is one of the things I'm talking about. If we get together, as Pat said, we organize as groups and go to these sales and buy up some of these properties.
Look, last time at Delco, I seen a bunch of Mexicans. They couldn't even speak English, but they could speak numbers. They were there. They were there as a pack.
So
and they couldn't speak English because I was trying to talk to them, and I was the only African American in attendance. So I'm saying to you, upset sale, we need to share our information. These politicians, I found out they get free dental care. They get, you'd be shocked at the services we're tight-lipped about. It's American rights.
All right, let me give you my email is photo.
Yeah, let me send you this race, 10 top racist states.
Oh, you said Delaware was number one.
It's B, or you saying what now?
You said Delaware was number one?
Yeah, that was number one in one survey. It was number one. I figured it because they're the worst in the Bureau of Unclaimed Property I've ever seen. I'm going to write Joe Biden about how backwards his state behaves and handling his releasing claims for his cheated monies of the rightful owners.
Yeah, right to Chris Coons.
It's disgraceful.
I'll tell the message then.
Okay.
Anyway, what's the email?
It's Photoman, PHOTOMAN, the number 4, the letter U, the number 2. Photoman for U2 at yahoo.com.
Yahoo! Okay.
Yahoo. That's right. Thank you so much, caller. So now,
shoot me a text message, good sister. Good speaking with you.
That's right. And or if you forgot his number, send me an email and I'll, send you his text number. Because if he asks for you, then he must get used. Speaking about that, a good brother on my block, Mike Newsom, he's a bricklayer, a professional union bricklayer. He says he wants to help you with developing, building parts of your school.
Oh, sure.
He said he ran to you a couple of times, but he's trying
to rap with it.
Yeah, he's very interested. He's a very good brother too, man. Matter of fact, he helped to build the mosque down at 15th Street for Kenny Gamble.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so he's top rate. In fact, I talked to him the other day, and I saw him there on my block. His family lives on my block, and so I got a number of good words for him. So now, Sister Malele, you've been quiet for a little bit. So tell me what you think about what's been said.
No, listen, I understand the importance of discipline. And if you have no discipline and you receive lump sums of money, and if you already have an ignorant way about how you go about spending, then you're going to lose it quickly, and then it's only going to be to other people's benefit. I just say that in the process of people talking about publicly in ways of how to generate funds or take away funds from somebody else, if you're still waiting on, quote unquote, the government to sign and pass laws and things like that, basically you organizing and publicly saying and showing how you're going to do it, they're like, oh, so you want to take bread out of our mouths right now while we try to find ways to give you more? It's just going to, expand the opportunity for them to say no longer or to put more sanctions on how it is that they won't do so. And so, then they'll try to find other ways, elitist ways in some ways, to find out how is it that they could potentially give somebody reparations now, 30 years from now, whatever the case may be. But, I do have faith that there are enough of us out here who are doing the right thing to the best of our abilities, and we've shown it in practice. It's not because of a business or even a nonprofit. You just have a lot of us out here in several states that have just been doing more to identify with our culture and to do things to progress on behalf of self and for our people. I definitely believe in Regima, collective work and responsibility through and through. And my thing is just to constantly stay in the field, boots on the ground with the young people, even to go places where some have told me not to go, for fear of saying that, oh, this school this or that neighborhood that, then that means they need me more. Or I can't necessarily say, oh, I'm doing this to help the students get this scholarship money when you have third graders or fifth graders or eighth graders, but they can't even sadly see that far out. And so that's potentially where I know where I have had strength at for years. And I just want to maintain that, and it can be draining sometimes, but you have to do things to reinforce yourself and just keep coming back and to do it in a creative way. So,
well, I was just thinking that Father Divine had a very large following. It was a lot of them. Marcus Garvey certainly had a large following, millions, and T.D. Jakes right now has a large following. I don't know if he has millions, but he has, large mega churches. He probably has a lot of digital listeners as well. So he may have participation from millions. But I'm saying if these people can generate that much interest, and if they were able to direct it towards re-Africanization, man, we would be in a much better place. But they trying to lead us into the pearly gates instead of the Gold Coast.
Yeah. You got to be careful with religion. When you look back at religion, whether it's black nationalist religion or integrationist mainstream religion, I mean, three things you can't deny. One, although it tends to start good, it doesn't tend to end that way. Number two, you always get a strong spirit of opportunism and hustleship within it, where people, are basically expected to give all their money to this one person who claims to be divine and doesn't have to give an accounting to anybody. I'm just very leery of anybody. And I respect all the great religious nationalist leaders that we've had, but I'm just very suspect of anybody, who's coming in claiming to be sent by God to teach me a lesson and then expecting me to give them all of this money without any accounting of it. We got to be careful of that. And then you've never seen any of the major black religious leaders, none of them really fought for black people. Like if you look at police brutality, none of them never fought that. If you look at mass incarceration, none of them never fought that. None of the systemic injustices that black people have faced, none of the religious leaders ever attacked any of those. They basically created a utopia that black people could escape to give them a false sense of safety from the American empire without ever actually challenging any part of that American empire. I think at the end of the day, although it looked great in its time, what was the actual legacy? What did you actually change? What did you actually build? And I don't want to be excessively critical of them, but I just think as we go further into the 21st century, we need our movement and organization to be secular. They need to be democratic and they need to be transparent. I don't like the idea of someone at the top claiming special favor from God, which means he doesn't have to be held accountable by the people. I'm not a fan of that at all.
We have one last caller that wants to get in on the conversation. Good evening, caller. Welcome to New Worldview. What's your first name? Where you calling from?
Yeah, how you doing? This brother ND3X. I just wanted to commend everybody for coming out on the show this evening. Just real quick, because I know it's ending. Piggyback off what the sister said. Sister Mullally, in regards to the reparations, there are quite a bit of us that have our minds together. So I think that to say discount it because some of us aren't ready would be a great disservice to us all. And to piggyback off of what Brother Umar just was saying, a lot of people have used the religions to separate and turn us against each other. But I think we as a people need to be leery of the separatism amongst each other, because sometimes the woke brothers with the dashikis don't like the woke brothers with the suits, and sometimes the woke sisters that tie their hair get into it with the sisters who comb or treat their hair, when we all need to look for the good heart for the betterment of our people. And sometimes you send different soldiers for different missions. But if the battle is ultimately won for all of our righteous people, then I think we need to send all these soldiers out. So some of these meetings, I think, need to be held behind closed camps, as Sister Malele was saying, so that the enemy does not always necessarily know our next move.
Thank you so much, man, for that.
No doubt.
All right. So now I said that was the last caller, but we had this sister, and I couldn't turn this sister down. She wants to get in.
Sorry. Yeah. Hi, my name is Linda Stewart, and I'm calling from Delaware.
Hey, Delaware.
Yeah. Hi, Patrick. I don't know if Patrick is there, but I wanted to chime in, and I know you guys talked about.
Glad I took your call.
Yeah.
Patrick is here.
Hey, Patrick.
How are you doing, Linda?
I'm good, thank you. I'm sorry. I know I dialed in late, but I just wanted to make a comment.
Yes.
I know this is a time for revolution. I know we've been talking about so many things, and we've had these politicians say all these sorts of nice things. We've seen all these community leaders sending all these TikTok videos and all that stuff, but then no one is taking action. So I believe it's time for us to start taking action, because we have all this information and we know what to do. But it appears that not many people, and I'm saying not many of us, well, for me, I'm good trouble, but then not many people have the courage to fight out there, for what is right. And if we do not fight, I guess our children will continue experiencing what we have seen. So I guess for me, I'm challenging those leaders who are busy forwarding the TikTok videos, those who are busy claiming that they are out there fighting and serving for the community. This is the time for us to take action, because we have all the literature we need to, have the movement, but then we sit behind the scenes in silence and not supporting what we're supposed to do.
That's true. So, Linda, I want to thank you so much. This is my first time hearing you, but listen, don't be no stranger to New World View. We are very caller friendly. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
So now, Dr. Johnson, I wanted to ask you about that. She mentioned TikTok. They say they're trying to ban TikTok. What do you think about that?
Well, the U.S. government, National Security Agency, they're claiming that China is spying with the TikTok, whether that's just propaganda or true, I don't really know. It wouldn't hurt to be banned. We got too many black children who can't read on grade level, so I don't understand how they got so much time to be on social media in the first place. Right now in America, only half of the black boys in the fourth grade can read on grade level, and only half of the black boys in the 8th grade can count on grade level. So if you only got half of the black boys being academically proficient in both subjects, how we got so much time for social media?
Patrick is here. Patrick, you do a behavioral specialist.
Yes.
When you run into these children that are below reading and mathematical levels, can you tell the difference?
Oh yes, definitely. They can. They have difficulty understanding basic life skills.
Wow.
They can really read along the line. What they know is geared towards the social media stuff. Apart from that, nothing. They can't understand any basic.
They know slangs
life
and
skills
things.
at all.
That's about it.
Yeah.
So I'm concerned, Dr. Johnson. What are we going to do about the future of our children?
Well, the thing is, we have to build independent schools. One of our greatest embarrassments, I would argue, at this present moment in time, and I'm speaking particularly to black men, because I don't have a problem with our queens and our queen mothers opening up charter schools to seize the immediate need to get started right now trying to save our children. So these comments are not meant for the queens. These comments are meant for the kings. We are the producers and the providers and the protectors. We need to produce and provide and protect some independent schools for our children. When you look at the transgenderism being forced on black children, when you look at the racism in the class, when you look at the outlawing of the teaching of slavery and racism, when you look at the low academic achievement, when you look at the high special ed rate, why are we so comfortable with black children being turned into a permanent underclass right in front of our faces? Black men need to be building. It's the same thing I said in Pittsburgh yesterday at their convention center. I am so disappointed at black men who send black mothers into these public schools and charter schools and private schools to fight on behalf of our sons, and we are rarely next to them when they walk into that school. Wow. I'm not talking about the fathers who are in jail. I'm talking about the fathers who are out free in the same city, but they will send a mother in there to fight for his son while he stays at home, or while he goes to work, or while he chases his business. Rarely do I see black fathers backing up black mothers when they have to go into these schools to protect our sons. It is one of the worst forms of neglect that's happening in our community right now.
Wow. Listen, we have totally run out of time. Sister Blair, you have anything you want to say before you go away?
No, listen, I'm all for the family unit and people just standing up and being there for our children. I know that's what works. And sometimes you just have to go back to the drawing board and help to actually do parenting classes and have parenting sessions with parents to help them know differently, maybe from what even they possibly did not have when they were children. And so that's also been a part of the format that I know for years has worked. And when you give them the opportunity to